All right, we are back on the Go Explore Granbury podcast. I am your host, Mickey Sharon, and I am excited to be joined today by three fellows from the production team and cast of the upcoming production of Matilda that is opening at the Granbury Opera House this Friday night, April 7th, and runs through Sunday, April 30th. And we are really excited to have Jay Lewis, the director of the show, and Ben Rongey, assistant director, and Gavin Clark, a cast member from the show. So, gentlemen, thanks for being with us today.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So, how's everybody feeling? We're recording this on Thursday, April 6th, and so the show opens tomorrow. Tonight is your final dress rehearsal. How's everybody feeling?
I'm feeling
How are
pumped.
you guys?
I'm feeling pumped. I'm ready
Good.
to go.
Yeah, I'm ready for it to
All right.
open. It's in great condition. So
Yeah. I have sat through a few bits and pieces of rehearsals and this week during tech, and it looks like everything's going really, really good. So Jay, let's start off with you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the show Matilda itself?
Okay.
Kind of give us a nice Reader's Digest version of what it's about.
I can do that. Matilda comes from a children's novel written by Roald Dahl, and it's one of a kid's favorite books. Roald Dahl wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, BFG, all sorts of great novels. And they've taken it several years ago. It was made into just a regular movie. Then this past year, we saw it as a musical on Netflix. And it's been out for about 5 years for production companies to actually do the show. And of course, it's about a little girl who is unique. And I think that's the best way to describe her without giving away anything, is she is extremely unique, and how she deals with situations in her family and then at school with how she tries to fit in with her students. And then there's a very interesting balance between a good teacher and a bad teacher and how that plays out.
Right. And so, and Matilda being kind of the the focal point of the show, Matilda kind of has a not the best home life.
Not at all.
Yeah.
I would call CPS, but that's
somewhat of a let's say a dysfunctional family and home life,
Right.
and maybe bordering on abusive parents, and
Absolutely.
which unfortunately, again, April being Child Abuse Awareness Month,
Right.
In Texas, and so I think it bears at least mentioning that aspect of the show. But I think the bigger aspect that you brought up is there's also this this undercurrent of a contrast between a really great teacher that forms a really strong relationship
Exactly.
with Matilda as one of her students, and then the principal or the headmistress of the school, who is anything but a but a good educator, right? So talk to us a little bit about, I know you're a former educator, so
Yes.
talk to us about the teacher role in this show is Miss Honey. Talk to us a little bit about that character.
That character is the one you fall in love with. She is, I would think, the epitome of what everyone would ever want in a teacher: kind, encouraging, a place you feel comfortable, no matter. That's one of the things she does with Matilda. She knows she's unique. She doesn't fit in, but she helps her adjust and helps her fit in. And that's what every good teacher should do: look at each student individually and cater the way that they treat that student according to their basic needs.
Right. And I thought it was interesting on at the first rehearsal. I was there at the first rehearsal, first cast read through, and I thought it was really interesting that as part of your request to the cast members as they were introducing themselves.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about what you did there.
Well, generally the first time you've got the whole cast together, and man, that was almost 3 months ago. But we had the entire cast. I think we were missing one person, but we went around, introduced ourselves, said what our character name was, and then I asked them to relate and share with the company who what teacher in their life had the greatest impact on them. And it was so interesting to see. You had all sorts. You had math teachers, you had a dance teacher, you had, of course, theater arts teachers, all sorts. And I kind of counted as it went around, and having a fine arts background and as a fine arts educator also, I was thrilled to say that over half of the company, and that was probably 40 people in that room, over half of them were fine arts teachers, whether it was choir, band, music, art, dance, whatever. And I was really excited about that.
Fantastic. So Ben, let's throw it over to you a little bit. This is you're the assistant director for the show, working with probably one of the more experienced and well-loved directors in the entire DFW area. So I can't think of a better person to assistant direct your first show under than Jay. But tell us a little bit about your background and what it's been like assistant directing your first show.
So this is now my second time to do this. Technically, I assistant directed Legally Blonde Jr. in the fall under Caitlin LeBeau, our wonderful music director for this show. And I think it's really interesting going from that show to this one. First of all, because this show is a much wider scale, a much bigger show, and just seeing how it is learning under different directors. And I think Jay and I have our strengths that work really well together, because Jay is fantastic with blocking and I'm really strong with kind of detailing work, adding things in here and there. And it's a lot of fun just getting to work with all these different people. We've got a fairly large cast of 30 plus, I believe.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm hoping to do more like this after this one's over.
Can I just say, as when we put a team together, a production team, I go for the best. To be quite honest, I love it, and because I need that. I know they having the best, and I know the people I bring in are the ones that will help me because I'm not strong in that area. And fortunately, in this case, Ben is extremely proficient in looking at the details and figuring them out with the actors, the character and things. My focus has always been on how the blocking, does it look good? How does the blocking look? How does the set fit in? I see, something that needs to be painted, things of that sort. And so having different eyes and working together as we're going through that has really been a fun thing to compare and share that then with the cast and what they need to improve on and change.
And Ben, you've been a student here and involved in the Granbury Theatre Academy for a number of years.
5 years now.
Wow!
Yeah.
Wow! 5 years.
5 years this summer.
Time flies when you're having fun, and so it's got to be kind of neat for you to come through the academy ranks, and now you've assistant directed on an academy show. Now you're assistant directing on a main stage show. So that's got to feel pretty cool.
It does. It's very, very. I feel very honored to be able to do this. Coming from being this academy student 5 years ago, it just came out of nowhere, to now being on the part of production teams.
Right. So tell us what Jay told us a little bit about what the show was about. Tell us what your favorite part of the show is, and maybe why.
Okay, I have to say, I think my favorite part of the show either is Telly or Loud, which are both actually the songs of the parents of Matilda. Loud is this very high energy, very fun, very dancey number. And I have to say, our cast members absolutely crushed that. Our choreographers did a fantastic job. The music sounds fantastic, and it's just so fun. It's so high energy, and it's such a crowd pleaser. It gets you pumped. And then you've got Telly, which is kind of a big comedy number, which is done by Gavin Clark here, one of our cast members, our Michael, and Bill Lewis, who is just absolutely hilarious, has a wonderful voice too. It is such a fun time, and I think the audience are going to love those numbers.
Great. Well, we'll be sure and look for those. So Gavin, that's a good segue over to you.
Yes.
Tell everybody again, in case they missed that, what role you're playing in the show, and let's talk a little bit about your character.
I play Michael in the show, and that is Matilda's older brother, who is not the brightest bulb in the box. He's been addicted to the television his entire life, so he's kind of been so focused on that, he kind of tunes out everyday life. And I think Matilda can get a bit frustrated with him because she's also her entire family in general, because she sees things that they don't. And I think that's a big part of her entire character is, her family is not exactly focused on what she's focused on. And Michael's big thing is just Telly, which is the Act 2 opener with me and Bill.
Right. And so you've actually performed in this show before.
Yes. I did the show 3 years ago. I played Bruce, which feels wild to say because it was pre-quarantine. Then my entire life changed. I got puberty hit. Voice is now a baritone, so woo!
No longer the tenor that Bruce needs, right?
Yeah. And by the way, Clark Nuttall, who does play Bruce in our production, stellar voice.
Unbelievable.
Oh my lord, he is fantastic. And I think it is kind of a bit of a thing for me to always look for good Bruces as I play the role before. And it's kind of a fun thing to watch someone who's almost better than you come in. You're like, oh, he's better than me. Okay, I'm self-conscious now. But he's a delight. He's also just a hilarious kid in general. But I'd say the energy changes a lot when you're not playing the same part back to back. I played a little kid, and now I'm playing big kid and Michael. And I think it's baffling to see the talent of the little kids when you're not so focused on just doing your job as a little kid. But these kids are so young, and they are doing it so fantastically. Every choreo is hit, every piece of music, every little harmony they have, so intricate, but they hit it amazingly. These kids are insane. They're absolutely fantastic. Audiences are going to love them.
Yeah, that's the rehearsals I've been fortunate enough to sit in on. That's really one of the things I've been struck by is just the vocal ability of obviously not, it shouldn't be maybe so surprising the older kids, but the younger kids, I've been really surprised at the vocal abilities of these little kids. I mean, their harmonies are just a knockout. So, Jay, talk a little bit about some of the kids you have in your. Let's start off talking about Matilda really quick.
All right.
I know that role is double cast.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about the young ladies playing that.
Two actresses playing Matilda, and they will do 2 performances apiece each weekend. And the first one, Hannah Ward. Hannah's a student in Glenrose, and just an absolutely stunning voice. When I think Hannah, that's the first thing I think of. And she may have been in Matilda and Casa as one of the kids. Yes. And so she's had some experience with this show beforehand, but she absolutely nails. When she gets to her solo song, Quiet, I tear up and I get these goosebumps all over. She's absolutely incredible. And then we've got Blair Stanfield, who you look at her and that's Matilda. She's a wonderful singer herself and also a great actress, but you physically look at Blair and you think that's the way I read it in the book, was that Matilda.
That's who I pictured.
And she, once again, you can't go wrong by seeing either one of those girls. They each have their own style in the way that they do it, but they're equally, matched and just as good. You're not going to, if you can see both of them, you'll be doubly. It'll be doubly enjoyable.
I think everybody does need to see it twice. They need to come see it twice to see both Matildas.
To see both Matildas.
Yeah. Well, so Ben, now I know the main antagonist in the show is Trunchbull.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about that character and who's playing that in the show.
Okay, so Trunchbull is the mean principal of the school, and our actor who plays her, Jonah Hart, absolutely fantastic. He hits all of his comedy moments perfectly. He hits all of his terrifying cold moments, and his voice is just absolutely killer. He's got this huge villain song in the second act called Smell of Rebellion. That is just one of the greatest moments in the entire show, and he absolutely kills it. and he's just like, he's got this great physicality about him. He's playing a woman, a big scary woman, and he doesn't have to modify his voice too much, but he makes it completely convincing that he is this big scary lady.
Right.
And it's just, he's phenomenal.
And I'm sure that his height, and I mean, that character needs to be very ominous and foreboding, and I can't wait to see Jonah in that role.
And that is something I will say, is watching him backstage in full costume yesterday just walk by, horrifying, so scary. He was walking through the crossover backstage at this hallway, and he was walking right at me. I've never felt more intimidated. It was so scary.
So he pulls it off, is what you're saying.
Fantastically, yes.
That's awesome. Well, so then if Trunchbull is the main antagonist, and our protagonist, as we talked about a while ago, is Miss Honey. So Gavin, give me your impressions of the actress that is playing Miss Honey, and what that and I'd be interested to hear from you. What in your mind, you can tag this on to the end of your answer, since Miss Honey is a teacher. What really, in your mind, makes a great teacher?
Well, we have Audrey Randall playing Miss Honey, and she has one of the best voices I've ever heard in musical theater. She has this gorgeous tone that pierces the audience's ears at this great level, and it just makes you feel warm. It's it's the perfect tone to have for Miss Honey. It feels relaxing. You feel safe when she's singing. It's the perfect energy to have for someone playing Miss Honey, and I think the character of Miss Honey is one that is so welcoming on stage, which is why I think it's complimenting to have Audrey playing her. Because the second you see Miss Honey on stage, you know that she's the good person, because there's no doubt about it. She's walking on stage, this pretty music trill is playing, and I think you really feel like you could tell her anything. And I think something that makes a good teacher is making people comfortable. I think it's often a problem whenever, especially if you're working in a show too, if you have someone in a rehearsal space where you don't feel comfortable and you don't feel like you can make the proper choices that are needed for the moment, it stifles creativity a lot of the time.
Right.
And I think it's the same thing in the classroom. I think if you're too scared on focusing on little imperfections, no one's going to want to speak up and they're not going to want to say anything. And as Matilda would say, that's not right. Zinger for you guys.
Way to work that in.
But Jay does a great job about that. Ben does a great job about that. They make it feel to where you feel good making your own choices, and you feel like you can just play your character. And if I want to add a little thing here, I'm just gonna ask them hey, is it okay if I do this here? And they're always very welcoming, and they always support the decision you make. So it's very comforting. Right.
And what do you guys think? And I'll throw this out there to any of you that want to answer this. But the show Matilda speaks to a lot of people in just different ways. It means different things to different people. Just the overall message of the show. But what do you think individually? What is the message of Matilda?
It's okay to be unique. It's okay to be different. Embrace it.
Absolutely.
Build on it.
And Matilda is coming from, her uniqueness as far as her family is concerned is she's coming from a family that she loves to read.
She loves to read, and her family does not embrace reading at all.
Right.
They
ridicule
her for reading, and they call her. There's even a identity type thing going too, because Dad continually calls her a boy, but I'm a girl. She keeps saying that
because he wanted a boy.
Exactly,
when she was
exactly.
Born. Yeah.
And so it's basically telling you to stand up for what you know is right.
Right, and just be yourself.
And be yourself. Yeah.
I would agree. I think it's about being unique, embracing yourself, and standing up for yourself. Because a huge theme in this show is Matilda is constantly bullied throughout the whole thing by, be it her teachers or by her parents.
Yep.
And a huge part of the show is her kind of coming into herself and being able to stand up for herself.
And others that are
right.
ridiculed and too.
She kind of becomes a leader among the younger students at at Cruncham Hall and kind of rallies them and lets them know
Right.
that it's okay to stand up for themselves.
And I would say that is a big theme in the show is strength in like situations of vulnerability. And I think that happens a lot to Matilda where like she's forced to become the bigger person and to like have this like show of strength even though she's scared herself. But she knows that in the end what's right is that people stand up for themselves and take charge of their story, which is what basically the entire Song of Naughty is about. She's like reading all these stories. She's like, I wonder why they didn't just stand up and say something. Why didn't they just change what they're doing? And I think that's a big thing with Matilda is there's also a storyline written throughout the show of the acrobat played by Sophie Valadez and the escapologist played by Garrett Hollowell, who are fantastic performers. And she has this whole storyline. I think it's kind of an escape for her from like either the Trunch Bowl or her family. And I think another big part of the show is the escape into Matilda's mind, which does happen a lot in the show.
Yes.
Like there's a number called Quiet, where she's kind of just like tunes everything out and just like she's sitting with herself. And I think that's a big thing in the show is finding yourself and being true to yourself, being true to your own strengths and standing up for what's right.
Right. Well, it's a great show. I mean, I've been so impressed with what bits and pieces I've seen. I mean, all of the artistic elements of the show are just you've got J.D. Phelps and Stevie Brooks
Choreography.
doing the choreography. You've got Caitlin LeBeau doing the music directing on the show. And then you've got the amazing Reagan Deming as our scenic artist.
Oh my gosh!
People are going to
Yes.
be blown away by
Incredible.
the beauty
And
of.
then there's
of the
Colton
set.
Lively.
Colton Lively's
and his
doing
crew.
costumes and hair and the wigs and makeup, and Whitney Sheeran designing the lights, and I mean it's really it's a beautiful show, and but it's also, Jay, it's also just kind of wrap things up, just to let people know, while it's because there are a lot of kids in the show,
Right.
but it's not a kids show.
True.
It is a show for, really it's a show for all audiences, but it is definitely a show targeted for adults.
Right, exactly. And I think we also need to say it does involve some supernatural type magic elements to it that are all a part of Matilda's persona and her personality, but that's what makes for a good happy ending too.
Right,
the show.
exactly. Right. Well, that's
Without
what's
giving
important.
anything away.
Yeah, we're not going to give
Yeah.
anything away here, but it does. It's a wonderful message for all ages.
Absolutely.
To me, it is a show that meets you where you're at, age-wise, and maturity level. It's a show that can speak to anyone and everyone, regardless of who you are and what age you are. So, so guys, thanks so much for coming out today and being with us on the podcast. And again, want to remind everybody, Matilda will be at the Granbury Opera House. It opens this Friday, April the 7th, at 7:30. And also, we'll make this quick note: there is not a Sunday, this Sunday being Easter Sunday. There is not a Sunday afternoon performance like we normally have. That performance has been moved to next Thursday, I believe April the 13th, I believe it is.
Best seats are available for that night.
Seats
you
are
know?
lots of seats available since we moved the show. It's a Thursday night, so there is a performance then. But this show runs Friday, Saturdays, and most Sundays through April the 30th. You don't want to miss it, and you can go to GranburyTheatreCompany.org to buy tickets online, or you can call the Opera House box office at area code 817-579-9552. I'll put all of that information, I'll link all of that in the description of this episode. So, guys, break a leg.
Thank you.
Good luck on opening or your dress rehearsal tonight. And so break a leg there, and for sure break a leg opening night tomorrow night.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you,
and
Mickey.
with that, we will take a quick break, and we'll be right back on the Go Explore Granbury podcast.